What if your smile became your superpower until someone weaponized it against you? That's what happened to Alex Kane. He wasn't a politician. He wasn't a CEO. He didn't speak in grand speeches or lead protests, but what he did do was smile. And that smile, wordless, genuine, unstoppable, reached across oceans and cracked millions of phone screens into joy. But in America, that kind of light has enemies, and one of them was about to twist the system just to see it snuffed out. Alex Kane never needed words to be heard. Born in the heart of Dakar, Senegal, Alex came into the world laughing, or so his mother liked to say. By age 3, he'd already lost his father. By 10, he'd followed his mother to Milan, where life wasn't cruel, just invisible. The kind of invisible you feel when teachers look through you, when shopkeepers watch you too closely, when no one speaks your name right so they stop trying. Alex learned early that words could be walls, but gestures, smiles, that was universal currency. He started posting TikToks as a teenager, silently miming, dancing, and reacting to absurd situations, all with no words, just his face, his eyes, that one-of-a-kind, goofy, expressive grin. By 20, he was viral in Europe. By 23, he had millions of followers worldwide. And at 25, America came calling. A New York-based creator collective offered Alex a visa, a loft, and a sponsorship deal. He didn't hesitate. The US was more than a dream. It was the stage where he could finally give back to the immigrant kids like him, to the kids who felt invisible. And in that first year in NYC, Alex did exactly that. He used his platform to raise funds for immigrant youth centers. He mentored aspiring Black creators. He even helped launch a scholarship for children of undocumented parents. To fans, he was a modern-day chaplain. To brands, he was a goldmine. To his community, he was hope. But not everyone was watching with admiration. Some were watching with something colder, darker, something that didn't want to laugh, only to silence. Tyler Brooks called himself the voice of the Real America. At 23, he had already amassed nearly 2 million followers across platforms. His niche, mixed Gen Z aesthetics with MAGA talking points. He wore backwards caps and designer jeans, but ranted about border control. Used slang, but warned of cultural decay. Posted memes, but pushed conspiracy theories. To his fans, he was clever, fearless, uncancelable. To everyone else, he was dangerous. And one night, during a live stream filled with snark and smirks, he asked a question. So this guy, Alex Kane, everyone's saying he's the immigrant darling of TikTok. But who is he, really? Who's vetting him? How do we even know he's here legally? It was framed as a joke, but the comments lit up. Facts. ICE should check him out. He's probably fake like the rest. The algorithm did the rest. Suddenly, Alex's name was popping up in corners of the internet he'd never entered. Forums, rants, edits with ICE vans superimposed behind him. It escalated quickly. Tyler doubled down, posting a now-viral exposé full of speculation, half-truths, and cherry-picked visa rules. He came here on a creative visa, sure, but is he still eligible? These things expire. And I know some of you have sent in tips. Some laughed, some panicked, but one call went through, and that was enough. Chapter 3. The Knock That Changed Everything. June 6th, Manhattan. It was humid, heavy. Alex had just showered, towel around his neck, prepping for a live stream and a community fundraiser that evening. He heard the knock once, then louder, then fists pounding. He opened the door, and ICE agents stepped in. They asked his name, asked for identification, said they received a credible tip, said his visa had expired. Alex blinked, confused. No, my sponsor handles it. I just renewed, but it didn't matter. Handcuffs clicked shut. A neighbor's dog barked in the hallway. Somewhere, someone started recording on their phone. That was the last moment Alex Kane saw his own freedom. For days, they took him to a holding facility in Newark. Concrete, fluorescent, isolated. He had no access to his phone, no way to call his lawyer, no idea what had happened, and worst of all, No voice, because how do you defend yourself when the system never cared to hear you in the first place? Alex's fans noticed his silence immediately. No new uploads, no live stream, no stories. At first, they assumed burnout, but then a blurry video surfaced on Twitter. A neighbor's phone camera had caught it. Alex, shirt damp, confused, being led down a hallway in cuffs. The ICE jacket was unmistakable. That 8-second clip went viral in 12 hours. By hour 18, the hashtag #FreeAlex was trending globally. TikTok lit up with duets of his old videos overlaid with angry text. This man brought joy to millions. ICE took him like a criminal. Others stitched the footage with raw pleas. If this can happen to him, it can happen to any of us. Civil rights organizations joined in. The ACLU posted, "Creative visa holders are being targeted without due process." Alex Kane's arrest is a violation of both human dignity and legal precedent. In Harlem, fans organized a vigil. In LA, creators held a protest live stream. In Atlanta, Black activists marched with signs that read, "Smiles shouldn't be illegal," and still no official word. Until he spoke. Tyler Brooks responds. Tyler Brooks couldn't believe his luck. This was it. The algorithm jackpot. He jumped on YouTube Live and leaned into the camera. Smug as ever. "I said it, didn't I? I said we needed to look into this dude. And now ICE is doing their job." The chat exploded. Some cheered. But for every W. Brooks, there were 10 "you monster" comments. He laughed, sipped from a mug labeled, "Build the wall," then said it, "I don't feel bad. This is America. You come correct, or you leave." The clip spread faster than his livestream ever had. Media outlets picked it up. Even the New York Times ran the headline, "TikTok star detained after online influencer targets immigration status." Suddenly, the story wasn't just about Alex. It was about something bigger. What happens when digital influence becomes a weapon? And worse, what if the system rewards it? Behind the cold walls. In detention, Alex felt the walls closing in emotionally and physically. The room was cramped. No windows. Meals were barely edible. ICE agents were cold but not cruel. Just indifferent, like he was a file folder. Not a person. They didn't allow him a phone. Didn't tell him the extent of the charges. Didn't explain the tip that triggered it all. But worst of all wasn't the silence. It was the shift. Alex, who had brought joy to the world with no words, now sat in forced silence, stripped of every identity. Not a creator. Not a community builder. Just detainee #30648A. He thought about his mother in Milan, his fans, his fundraiser. He felt small. For the first time in years, he felt like that invisible boy again. But what Alex didn't know was that the world hadn't gone quiet. It was roaring for him. The legal break. On day 5, Alex finally met with a pro bono immigration attorney from the Bronx. Her name was Lillian, Latina, fierce, fast-talking. And when she walked into that room, she looked him square in the eyes and said, "You're not alone. Not anymore." She had already filed the emergency appeal, already contacted the sponsor agency, already gathered proof that Alex's visa extension had indeed been filed. Months before, there had been a clerical lag, a gap in the database ICE used, and someone had exploited it. Lillian leaned forward and said something Alex would never forget. "You didn't fail the system, Alex. The system failed you. But they didn't expect you to have an army. The army online, because outside those walls, Alex's army had mobilized. Top influencers used his face as their profile pic. Celebrities spoke out. Rihanna tweeted, "This man made us laugh. Now we stand with him. #FreeAlex." Even major brands that had once sponsored him, Nike, Spotify, Adobe, issued statements urging transparency and due process. Petitions passed 1 million signatures. Protesters gathered at ICE offices in multiple cities, and a coordinated day of silence took place on TikTok in his honor. Creators went dark for 24 hours, posting only one message: "We're mute until he speaks again." And then it broke. On June 13th, 1 week after his arrest, Alex was released on humanitarian grounds pending review. The internet erupted. He stepped outside the facility into a wall of flashing lights and clapping hands. Still dazed, Alex said nothing at first, but his eyes scanned the crowd, spotted a young girl holding a sign. "Your smile gave me courage." And in that moment he smiled back, tired, but full, like hope, worn raw but still burning. He gave one statement to the press: "I always believed a smile could break any wall. Let's not let fear build new ones." But the story wasn't over. It was just beginning, because the backlash against Tyler Brooks was coming. And what Alex did next, no one saw coming. Tyler Brooks had built his career off controversy, but this was a storm he didn't see coming. As Alex walked free, Tyler's feeds flooded with hate, with shock, with receipts. Clips of his gleeful ICE boasts were being remixed into brutal takedowns. This is what weaponized clout looks like. A man got detained because a rich kid got jealous. This is bigger than Alex. Influencers who once ignored Tyler now joined forces to expose him. Threads detailing his past digital harassment surfaced. A former classmate came forward with screenshots showing Tyler mocking immigrants in private discords. Then, brands he once partnered with began to distance themselves. Snapfit: "We condemn targeted harassment. We've ended all collaboration with Tyler Brooks." Metro T: "Our values don't align with xenophobia. Full stop." Even right-wing influencers began backing away, worried about legal blowback. And Tyler? He didn't apologize. He didn't back down. He doubled down, posted another live. "So now you're mad I told the truth? I didn't swat him. I didn't fake anything. I asked a question. If that gets someone detained, maybe they should have their papers right." But the damage was done. Someone made a documentary-style TikTok called "How to Deplatform a Villain in 7 Days," and it racked up 18 million views. Alex's turning point. After his release, Alex didn't jump back online right away. He stayed quiet, rested, listened. It was tempting to post a viral comeback. But he knew this wasn't about virality anymore. This was about voice, real voice, and choosing to use it. He met with lawyers, activists, tech experts. He learned that Tyler's tip had exploited a known vulnerability in ICE's digital system, one that had targeted hundreds of immigrants whose visa paperwork lagged in the back end. Alex realized this wasn't just about him. It was about the next Alex, the kid who didn't have a million fans or a lawyer like Lillian, the creator who'd get silenced quietly with no hashtag. And so he made a decision. He would use the very system that tried to break him, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, to build something bigger. The campaign, Invisible No More. 2 weeks after his release, Alex returned to social media, but not with a dance, not with a comedy sketch. The screen faded in on a still shot of him, seated in a plain hoodie, serious, steady, calm. "They tried to make me invisible, but I'm not, and neither are you." That was the first line. The video then cut to ICE stats, data on immigrant detentions triggered by anonymous tips, and screenshots of Tyler's smear posts. Then faces of people like Alex, creators, nurses, students, fathers, all who had been targeted, harassed, or detained under suspicious immigration complaints. Each said a version of the same phrase: "I was almost disappeared." The campaign was called Invisible No More, a multi-platform initiative aiming to raise awareness and change immigration tip protocols. Alex partnered with civil rights orgs, tech activists, even AI ethicists. The campaign gained immediate traction, and in the center of it all was that same kid from Senegal, still smiling, but this time with purpose. The twist nobody expected. As the campaign surged, an anonymous email hit Alex's legal inbox. Subject: Whistleblower tip. Tyler went too far. Inside, screenshots, metadata, audio logs. Turned out Tyler didn't just stir doubt online. He had submitted 4 separate false tips to ICE using burner accounts, each time exaggerating Alex's visa violation with fabricated claims. One even alleged Alex was running an illegal business ring. It was digital fraud, manipulating a federal system, a crime. And suddenly, the tables turned. ICE launched an internal review. Homeland Security subpoenaed Tyler's IP logs, and a congressional rep from New York announced they would introduce legislation to reform anonymous tip protocols in federal detainment. It wasn't just a social media takedown anymore. Tyler was now facing federal scrutiny. And Alex? He didn't say, "I told you so." He didn't gloat. He simply posted one sentence. Some walls don't fall until you show people what they're made of. Solidarity in the spotlight. The movement had begun to reshape the cultural landscape. Creators began openly discussing immigration status. Sponsors launched protections for international collaborators. Tech platforms revised their harassment policies around immigration-based doxing. And behind every change was Alex's story. He had become more than a creator. He was now a symbol, not because he wanted to be, but because someone tried to silence him and failed, because his silence had never been weakness. It was deliberate, it was powerful, and now it was over. But the most powerful chapter was still to come. The final act. A moment so unexpected, so personal, it would change how we talk about fear, fame, and freedom forever. It happened in a quiet studio in Brooklyn. No neon lights, no viral filters, just 2 chairs, 2 microphones. Across from Alex Kane sat someone no one expected him to speak to, a conservative podcast host named Travis Klein. He wasn't Tyler Brooks, but he was Tyler's ally, one of the first to publicly defend the ICE investigation and question Alex's intentions online. So why was Alex there? Because he understood something most people missed. You can't fight fear by shouting at it. You have to disarm it. The podcast wasn't friendly. It wasn't soft, but it was real. Alex listened, calmly, as Travis brought up the same tropes. Shouldn't we check immigration status? Don't Americans deserve to feel secure? Why should influencers get special treatment? And then Alex spoke. I never asked for special treatment. I just asked not to be treated like a threat because I made people smile. He paused, then added, the real question isn't why ICE knocked on my door. It's why no one knocked on Tyler's after he lied 4 times to a federal agency. Travis fumbled, tried to pivot, but Alex wasn't there to debate. He was there to unravel something. He told the story not of his fame, but of his first day in Italy, the classroom stairs, the landlord who called him Ragazzo Nero, like it was a slur, the silence of not knowing how to fight back, and how that silence became comedy. Because laughter was the only thing I could give people that they couldn't take from me. By the end, Travis had no viral retort. He ended the podcast quietly, but the clip spread like wildfire. This isn't a left or right thing, Alex said in the closing moments. It's a human thing. What kind of country do we want to be? The policy shift. A month later, the legislative bill proposed in response to Alex's case, the Digital Accountability in Immigration Reporting Act, DARA, passed in the House. It included stricter identity verification for immigration tips, a ban on acting solely on anonymous online leads without corroboration, a new oversight panel to review digital misconduct tied to federal action. The Tyler Clause was unofficial, but everyone knew it existed. ICE issued a public statement admitting a failure in process and committed to a full review of how digital tips are handled. It was a rare moment of government acknowledgement, sparked not by lawsuits or protests alone, but by a TikTok star who never raised his voice. A special hidden skill. Alex wasn't just good at silent humor. He had a gift, one people didn't talk about enough: emotional recognition. He could read people, their micro-expressions, their hesitations, their guilt, their doubt. Even his early fans noticed it, how he'd react perfectly to subtle emotional beats in videos. What started as mimicry was actually empathy. In the detention center, it helped him know who he could trust. In meetings with lawyers, it helped him anticipate strategies and connect with advocates. On podcasts, it let him defuse arguments before they exploded. His strength was never loud. It was felt, and that's what made it impossible to ignore. The personal ripple. After the policy changes, Alex could have left it all behind. He had offers, TV pilots, international deals, even speaking tours. But he chose something different. He started a program called Framework, a mentorship and legal aid incubator for immigrant creators and digital activists. The idea was simple. If the internet can destroy lives in seconds, it should also be able to protect them. Framework provided legal resources for visa-holding creators, digital defense training for marginalized influencers, partnerships with law schools and media ethics centers. Its first cohort included a queer animator from Brazil, a Sudanese-American fashion vlogger, a Palestinian poet using Instagram to archive family memories. Alex met with every one of them personally, not as a celebrity, as someone who knew. He taught them that fame wasn't a shield, but your voice could be if you learned how to use it with care. The unseen call. On a quiet night 6 months later, Alex got a call from a blocked number. He almost didn't pick up, but curiosity won. A voice crackled through. "This is gonna sound weird, but I think I owe you an apology." It was Tyler Brooks. He had been dropped by every sponsor. His platforms were throttled. He was now under federal investigation. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He just talked about his childhood, his fear, his belief that people like Alex were taking over his world. And for the first time, Alex realized something. Tyler wasn't just hateful. He was afraid of being forgotten. Alex said 5 words before hanging up. "You should try listening more." He didn't need revenge, because he already had something Tyler never would. Peace, and a world that now saw him fully. But the epilogue? That would come in the streets, where strangers would gather, not in anger, but in joy. And it all started with one event. It was September. New York's air had cooled, but the city still buzzed like a charging cable. A crowd gathered in Union Square, not for a protest this time, but for a celebration. No signs, no slogans, just people standing still. It was the Silent Loop, a public performance Alex launched with creators from over a dozen countries. No speeches, no music, just looped clips of immigrant creators projected across a 40-foot digital wall. Each clip was under 10 seconds, each silent, each full of life, dancing, cooking, crying, all framed in that distinct Alex Kane style, vibrant, expressive, universally human. People brought their kids, some cried, some just stood there, hands over their hearts. And in the middle of it all, Alex walked quietly through the crowd. Hoodie up, no cameras, no selfies, just listening. It wasn't about him anymore. It never really was. It was about a shared story, a shared fear, a shared resilience. And when the loop ended, a message lit up on the screen. "They tried to make us silent, so we made silence our stage." The crowd applauded, not wildly, but deeply. That kind of applause that feels like it comes from the bones. The story behind the screens. What few people knew was that Alex had received a letter the day before. Personal note. Handwritten. No return address. It was from a young man in Iowa. He wrote, "My dad used to talk like Tyler Brooks. Said immigrants were ruining everything. Said you were just another freeloader with a camera. But after your story, something changed. He cried during your podcast. He apologized to our neighbor. He said, I think I got it wrong." The letter ended with this line, "Thank you for giving my dad back to me." Alex held the note for a long time, because that was the real win. Not policy, not followers, not vindication, but restoration, a surprise visitor. After the silent loop ended, Alex stayed back to help pack up. He didn't notice the older woman waiting by the tech van until she softly called his name. "Alex!" He turned. She looked like someone's grandmother, purse tucked tight to her chest. Nervous eyes. "I knew your father," she said. Alex froze. It had been decades since anyone spoke of his dad. She told him her name, Miriam. Said she had worked with his father in Dakar at the docks. Said his dad once pulled her son from a fire. Said he used to smile exactly the same way. Alex's hands trembled. She pulled out an envelope. Inside, a photograph, his father young, smiling, holding a baby Alex. On the back it read, even without words, he'll change the world. He hadn't seen this photo before. He stood there, eyes burning, years crashing down on him all at once. Miriam squeezed his hand and whispered, "He would be proud, you know? Not because you're famous, because you fought back with love." The deep lesson. That night, Alex sat in his small Harlem apartment. Lights dimmed. He rewatched his oldest TikToks, the one with the banana peel, The one where he mimicked crying babies. The one where he used only his eyebrows to tell an entire joke. Simple things, silly things, and yet those videos had traveled across borders. They had outlived hate. They had reached people who would never meet him, but would feel him, because his superpower had never been silence. It was intention. Every grin, every eye roll, every pause had been a kind of rebellion against invisibility, against erasure, against the idea that you had to speak English or speak loud to matter. Looking forward, Alex didn't plan to be famous again. He didn't crave virality. He just kept building framework, kept mentoring, kept collaborating with lawyers, tech activists, and creators who wanted to leave the internet better than they found it. He also quietly launched a scholarship in his father's name, the Kane Initiative. It funds undocumented youth studying media and digital ethics. Its motto, create, defend, rise. But the real final act, it wasn't written yet, because every day, someone somewhere posted a video that made a stranger laugh, and that stranger didn't know it, but the style, the pause, the expressive glance was a little bit Alex Kane. Months passed. The news cycle moved on. Other stories took the spotlight. Other scandals trended. But Alex Kane didn't fade. He evolved. He started showing up at high schools, community colleges, and art programs, not with cameras, but with notebooks. He taught workshops on digital resilience. Not just how to create, but how to protect yourself in a system that profits off your visibility while making you disposable. In one session at a Bronx youth center, a student raised her hand and asked, "Mr. Kane, if you could go back and stay quiet, would you?" Alex paused, not because he didn't know the answer, but because it still hurt. "I didn't choose to speak. I was forced to, because silence in that moment would have meant I agreed with how they treated me. And I didn't, and I never will." The students clapped, but more importantly, they got it. Meanwhile, the fall of Tyler Brooks. While Alex rose on a wave of solidarity and clarity, Tyler Brooks was collapsing under the weight of his own deception. His followers dwindled. His sponsors disappeared. His legal case moved forward, slow but relentless. A digital forensics report confirmed he had created multiple fake profiles to target Alex with malicious intent. Each report was traced to the same Wi-Fi network, his condo in Tampa. In a final attempt to reclaim the narrative, Tyler posted a now infamous apology video. "I guess I made a mistake. I was just asking questions. I didn't mean for things to go so far." But his tone was off, too casual, too self-pitying. The comments shredded him. "You didn't ask questions. You threw matches. This isn't regret. It's damage control. You ruined a man's life for content." And one comment stood out, pinned by a stranger. "Some people build platforms. Others just burn bridges." Tyler went silent after that, a quiet legacy. Alex never acknowledged Tyler's downfall publicly. He didn't need to, because he wasn't chasing revenge, he was chasing impact. And it was everywhere now. TikTok launched a new creator safety protocol for international influencers, nicknamed Kane's Shield. YouTube added a digital harassment flag specifically for immigration-based attacks. Schools began including Alex's story in digital ethics and media literacy classes. And across the country, immigrant teens shared his videos as a kind of code. A language of resilience, of belonging, of not backing down. The airport scene. One evening, Alex arrived at JFK Airport for a flight to LA, where he was invited to speak at a digital rights summit. As he approached the security line, a TSA officer glanced at his ID, then looked up. The man was middle-aged, Latino, tired eyes. He whispered, "You're the reason my nephew didn't give up." Alex nodded, surprised. The agent added, "He got detained last year. Thought it was over. Then someone showed him your story." He said, "If Alex Kane made it out, maybe I can too." Alex didn't say much, just smiled, but his chest felt heavy. In the best way. Sometimes you don't need applause. You just need recognition. Behind the screen, there's something about the internet people forget. For every face that goes viral, there are millions watching silently. People on trains, people in shelters, people in kitchens scrolling between shifts. Alex never forgot them, because he had been one of them, and that, not the headlines, not the hashtags, was why he kept going. for the unseen, the unheard, the ones one algorithm away from being erased. Final lesson. In one of his last speaking events of the year, Alex was asked, "What do you want people to take away from your story?" He thought for a moment, then answered slowly, "That belonging isn't something you earn. It's something we should all be born with. And if someone tries to take it away, don't beg, don't shrink, stand, even if all you've got is a smile." The crowd rose to their feet, not because he was famous, but because he was right. But even then, Alex had one last surprise left for the world. A choice he'd make that no one expected. New Year's Eve, 11:57 p.m., while millions stared at glittering countdowns and champagne glasses, Alex Kane posted a video that stunned everyone. No warning, no fanfare, just a 46-second clip titled, "I'm logging off. For now." It opened with his face calm, content, eyes steady. "I came here with nothing but a phone and a grin. I didn't think that would ever be enough. Turns out, it was too much for some." He gave a soft laugh. "But this story is bigger than me now. I've done what I could in this space, and now it's time to make space for others." The final shot was symbolic. Alex placed his phone on a windowsill and walked away from the frame. City lights glowing behind him. No dramatic music. No like and subscribe, just quiet. Then the screen faded to black with one final message. "Make noise where it matters. Be silent where it heals. I'll see you in the real world." The comments flooded in. Some begged him not to go. Others called it a masterstroke. A few simply wrote, "Thank you." The aftershock. The decision sent shockwaves through the creator community. Top digital outlets called it the most graceful exit in influencer history. Some speculated it was temporary. Others analyzed every frame of the clip like a farewell poem. But Alex didn't return. Not to TikTok, not to YouTube, not to Instagram. Instead, he was spotted in unexpected places, teaching storytelling workshops at a community college in Queens, sitting in a pew at a local Black church in Harlem, helping organize a digital privacy summit in DC, mentoring a Sudanese-American teenager who went viral for translating refugee stories into animated shorts. No cameras, no interviews, just presence. A legacy set in motion. Even without posting, Alex's influence deepened. The Kane Scholarship Fund had expanded to include legal support for DACA recipients studying media. Framework partnered with MIT's Media Lab to develop an AI-powered tool that detects coordinated harassment campaigns in real time, especially ones involving race or immigration status. And most strikingly, several major creators followed Alex's lead. They reduced their screen time, opened nonprofits, started advocating for digital wellness and responsible storytelling. A new movement began forming, nicknamed by fans the Quiet Shift. It was about reclaiming meaning in a world obsessed with metrics, choosing impact over impressions. Alex didn't trademark it, didn't even promote it, but everyone knew who lit the fuse. A letter to the next one. 1 year to the day after his exit, Alex released a blog post. Just text. No photos. No hashtags. Titled, "To the One After Me." It read, in part, "You might feel invisible until someone targets you, and then suddenly everyone's watching. But here's what they won't tell you. You are not a moment. You are a movement. When they try to reduce you to a headline, become a story. When they try to delete you, become unforgettable. And if they silence you, smile. Because a smile, given at the right time, isn't weakness. It's revolution." The post went viral. Again, but Alex, still offline, because his work was happening where the algorithm couldn't touch. One last flash. A full year later, during a refugee storytelling conference in Lisbon, Portugal, Alex walked quietly on stage as an unannounced guest speaker. No press, no social media, just a dimly lit room filled with displaced poets, young documentarians, and teachers from around the world. He stood at the podium, paused, then said, "If you're in this room, it means you survived something." He scanned the room, emotion held in every blink. "And now, you get to choose what you do with that survival." He leaned closer to the mic. "Tell the story, even if it shakes your voice, even if they don't want to hear it, even if they try to shut you up. Tell it anyway, because someone, somewhere, is waiting for the courage to tell theirs. And they won't do it until they see you. He stepped back. No music, no slogan, just truth. The room rose in silence. No applause, just standing, just witnessing. But Alex's story had one final frame to place. One moment that would close the loop forever. It was spring in Dakar. The air was warm, the sun sharp. Children played soccer barefoot in the same alleyways where Alex once chased dreams too small to be named. He had returned to Senegal quietly. No press release, no social content, just a passport, purpose, and one worn-out journal with frayed pages and scribbled ideas. He stood at the site of the old shipping yard where his father once worked. It was overgrown now, rusted and hollowed, but still powerful, like a memory that refused to rot. With local builders and volunteers, Alex helped break ground on a new community center. Its name? The Maison du Silence, the House of Silence. It would be a digital literacy hub, a recording studio, a legal aid station for local youth preparing to emigrate. And in the main hallway would hang a plaque that simply read, "For those whose voices were stolen, and for those who found another way to speak." The mayor gave a short speech. A neighborhood choir sang. Alex didn't take the mic. Instead, he handed the scissors to a little girl with big eyes and tighter braids than patience. She cut the ribbon. The crowd cheered, and Alex smiled. A wide, silent, unstoppable smile. Epilogue. A story that doesn't end. The headlines moved on. The algorithms shifted again. But in places far from cameras, Alex's story kept echoing. A DACA student in Chicago won a National Filmmaking Award and dedicated it to the quiet creator who showed me I could exist. An ICE officer who once processed immigrant detentions now teaches policy reform. Because one kid's case made me rethink everything. And a 9-year-old boy in Naples who had never spoken a word due to trauma started posting silent comedy videos. He called his account Lil Kane. The first clip? Just him slipping on a banana peel, falling into a pile of laundry, and giving the camera the most dramatic stare ever seen. It got 1 million views, but more importantly, it got 100 comments saying, "I see you. You made my day. Thank you for this." Final frame. This isn't a story about a TikTok star. Not really. It's a story about what happens when systems meant to protect are used to harm. About what silence can become when wielded with purpose. And about the power of a single person who chooses not to disappear, even when every door is slammed shut. Alex Kane never yelled, never cursed, never begged. He just stood there, smiling in defiance. And that smile, it outlasted every lie. If the story moved you, don't scroll away. Hit like, share it with someone who needs to remember what hope looks like. And subscribe for more stories that remind us humanity is still louder than hate. What would you do if the system tried to erase you? Would you go quiet, or would you find a new way to be heard?